back. We've secured Ms. Domansky. Ms. Domansky, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you, very good. All right. Let's go ahead and get started then. Ms. Berger, your report whenever you're ready.
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. I was able to meet in person with the children in this case. I was able to make the trip up to meet with MW, and both children reportedly are doing great. There is still some concern with MW. There's some CPS investigations, basically related to like clean house complaints. When I was in the home, it was messy, but it wasn't anything that I was overly concerned about. I didn't call in and make a report or anything to that effect. Dad works nights, so it's kind of difficult with his off schedule, but it does seem that they are able to maintain and get that cleaned up a little.
Oh, she's frozen. Oh boy. Okay, maybe we're frozen. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay, all right. It cut out after you finished telling us about your visit.
Yes. My Wi-Fi is awful. Let me switch to my I'll hotspot really fast.
Okay.
Is that any better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, hopefully that maintains. But I was able to visit the home, and MW is a joy to be around. He's very excited, lots of energy. He was showing me his toys in his room and putting, crowns and masks all over me. So that was enjoyable. And I was also able to talk with the caseworker on this case regarding MW as well, and his dad and stepmom. At this point, I believe that we can release him from the court's jurisdiction, or at least that's what my recommendation would be. He does have an order from the front of the court. He is filing to get that modified while mom is incarcerated. But I don't believe that there is a risk of harm as she is incarcerated for, I think, a year, at least 10 months, if not a year. And afterwards would be on probation. So I think that hopefully it would be appropriate to release MW from our jurisdiction. I was also able to visit with BS in person, and he is growing like a weed. He's very tall. He's talking a little more, he's signing a little more, he eats everything in sight. But he reportedly is doing great. His caregivers report that he's meeting some of his milestones. They do have some evaluations, and they are following up with all of those just to make sure, he's developing appropriately and on track as he should be. They tried to do a toddler bed with him. He did not like that. So they took that apart and kind of put that away for now. And they're trying to transition him to that. But he has not had visits with either parent, and the caregivers report that he has had lessened behavior since that has happened. So I think that is appropriate to continue on at this time. So I'm just asking for one more review with that child, and then for a goal change, and then for MW to be released. Thank you.
Testimony this morning, Ms. Thomas.
Thank you, Your Honor. If Ms. Young can be sworn in to provide her report, please.
You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Good morning, Ms. Young.
Good morning.
You have provided a court report for today's hearing, correct?
That's correct, yes.
And in addition to the court report, you've attached the case service plans. Was there anything else that you attached to the court report?
I also attached a police report that I found from Blissfield Police Department in regards to Mr. Schmidt.
Okay. And that incident did not happen during this review period, but did you just become aware of it?
Yes, this is one I was following up from the prior court hearing. We were trying to find a report that validated the car accident that he had reported he was in. This is the only one I found so far. I'm still trying to do some more digging for additional information.
And to the best of, I guess, your recap, does the court report corroborate his statement that he made regarding the car accident?
The court report or the
I'm
police
sorry, the
report?
police report. I'm sorry, the police report.
The police report appears to be kind of a separate incident, but I don't know if it's necessarily a part of it. It doesn't state anything as far as a car accident, but that his vehicle was stolen and used by a friend and it was brought back. But he was also highly intoxicated, according to the police officers in the report. So it's kind of all over the place.
Thank you. During this last review period, I believe we're sort of at a little bit of an expedited review period. Has there been, I guess, can you just briefly summarize each parent's level of compliance with and benefit from the case service plan?
As of right now, I mean, as I stated in the prior report period, Ms. Demansky was facing her sentencing. She was sentenced to about a year in jail. I guess she's supposed to be scheduled to be out 6/28 of 2024, I believe, or around that time frame. So she's, doing whatever she can as far as services within the jail. I did speak to somebody at the jail last week about what she has available to her. And really all they have available is mental health services, psychiatric services, and then AANA. And then if there's any other additional things that she could potentially participate in, she's aware that she can request those things or at least notify me and I can try to put a referral in. But I mean, she's as compliant as she can under her circumstances. And as far as Mr. Schmidt, his visits were suspended, so there's no concerns as far as parenting time. As far as his services, I'm working and trying to send out a release. I just got back Friday afternoon from him signed for his therapist. He said he started a new therapist that he speaks to over the phone. I don't know if it's every week or every other week. He wasn't really able to clarify that. I did go out to see his residence where he's staying now in Albion with his new girlfriend. The home was appropriate. I didn't have any concerns with the home. But as far as services, really the only thing he's doing right now is the therapy services, and I'm waiting to verify what that looks like.
And what would be the barrier to reunification with Mr. Schmidt at this time?
At this time, because there's been a substantial amount of time since he's seen the child, his last visit, and I believe I did note that in the court report, was on 3/20/23, where he had made some rude comments to me and said that he was done. He didn't want to complete anything else. He basically stepped away and wanted me to not contact him. I did give him a couple of weeks just to kind of take a step back, see how things were going. I tried to reach out to him, didn't really get a whole lot of response other than I told you I was done. And he kind of left it at that. I did get back in contact with him when he reached out to me, I want to say in end of May, early June, stating he was ready to try to re-engage in services. He found a new therapist. That's at that time, like I'm still waiting to verify that information. So that's kind of where we're at with all of that.
Thank you. As it relates to the LJL's request to release MW from the court's jurisdiction under this case, do you have any recommendation on that?
I think we are ready to release, but just to kind of elaborate though, because there was that CPS investigation, Mick was involved. They concluded that we can provide some services in the home to try to help make sure like the home stays clean. As the courts are aware from prior court hearings, they lost a child, but I'll say about a year or two ago, that really has taken a toll on their mental health. We discussed that, talking about getting in some bereavement services or therapy services of some sort, just to kind of help with that, because it's a trickle down effect where your mental health can affect your everyday well-being. And if that is in fact what is going on, it will kind of assist with keeping the home clean, making sure that they're staying on task as far as meeting Mason's needs in the home and any concerns with that. The department's also working on purchasing some storage stuff, such as like a storage shelf, some bins, as well as a toy box for Mason for his room, just anything that they can do to try to help with some of that decluttering process. So we are trying to do the best that we can from afar. We have a courtesy worker that's been in the home multiple times a month. They had that MIC investigation, so those workers were in there. But at this time, they do have that 50-50 custody order in place. They're aware that if they were going to go for full custody, that they would need to do that. Has not been done thus far, so that order still stands with that 50-50. So at this time, as far as releasing him, we have no objection to that at this time.
Will those services that you've just mentioned regarding some of the in-home support stuff, can that continue with like ongoing work, or does the court need to retain its jurisdiction for that support to continue?
We may need to continue a jurisdiction, just either another short review period so that I can see if they have prevention services up in Genesee County. If they have prevention services, they could continue stuff voluntarily through that. We have that offered through us through our agencies, so, but every county is different in what they offer. So I could look into that and see specifically that portion and kind of proceed with that if that's acceptable.
Okay. And during the last 2 months, has Mr. Schmidt's communication with you increased to the point where you have a recommendation regarding a reintroduction phase with his child?
Well, I consulted with Therese Langen over at Parkside. I had a verbal recommendation from her. She hadn't met anybody in this case, so I just wanted to at least kind of touch base with her, see what her recommendation would be as far as, should we reintroduce the child to the respondent parents? What's the likelihood that we could do that in a timely manner based on, this is what's outlined in that psychological evaluation, some of those concerns, the lapse of the parenting time since March. Her thoughts and questions to me were, what is the status of this TBI? So the traumatic brain injury that Mr. Schmidt had sustained has really kind of impacted, and how has it impacted his everyday life? Is it realistic to reintroduce a child? Is he going to stay in the child's life long-term, or is it going to be short-term when he gets overwhelmed again? So there's a lot of those questions that we have to get answered, and I think a lot of that's going to be more through his therapist. So that's why I'm trying to collaborate with this therapist to try to get that information.
And to the best of your knowledge, is Mr. Schmidt receiving any services or medical attention for his TBI?
Not to my knowledge. I know his parents had access to the U of M portal to some of those records, and they had indicated that he had missed several appointments. I don't know if he switched doctors or anything like that, but that's some of the stuff that I want to try to follow up with him to get more information on, because he was seeing a specific doctor at U of M. So the child and the dad's portal is all in the same, I don't know, the same access to it. So they were able to see that he had missed those appointments and were concerned.
And as it relates to mother, given the length of her incarceration or in the limited services available, are there any services or supports that you can provide, whether like through a hard copy parenting book or mailing things and giving her like a self-addressed stamped envelope to mail back. Is there anything like that that the department can do to support the current goal of reunification for Ms. Demansky?
Absolutely. I can talk to the jail and see what they'll allow me to send over there. As far as the stamps, envelopes, all that kind of stuff. Because sometimes since COVID, I mean, they've been really picky on what they're accepting in there. So I will discuss that with the jail again and see what she's allowed to have access to. And I can continually send some things over there. I have no problem with that.
And at this time, you are not asking for a change in the permanency goal, correct?
I'm recommending consideration of a goal change. Not necessarily to change the goal at this time, just the consideration.
Is there anything else that you'd like to highlight from your court report for the court's attention today?
At this time, I can't recall anything else that I would need to elaborate on.
Okay, I have no further questions, Your Honor, and we would move to admit the court report with the proposed, well, I guess with the continued case service plans and the attachment. Thank you.
No
No
objection.
objection.
No objection.
Thank you, they are received. Cross-examination, Mr. Marwan?
Just a couple of questions. I know that we talked a little bit over the phone regarding Bailey and her future. I'm not hearing that it is your desire to recommend termination at this point. Is that correct?
Correct. There's a couple options that we could explore, termination being one, guardianship would be the other.
Yeah, we did discuss guardianship. Okay. And is that something, so you want to obviously keep jurisdiction for these kids regarding Bailey? That'd be correct.
Correct.
Okay. Thanks.
Questions?
Where is BS? Who is BS living with now?
He's currently residing with his paternal grandparents.
And how old is he?
He just turned 2.
And to your knowledge, when was the last time my client saw this boy?
March 20th, 2023 is the last report that I had.
And when is the last time you actually communicated with the father?
Yesterday. He sent messages back over the weekend.
Do you know why he's not here today?
He is at work and was not able to get time off, and they wouldn't allow him to go into the break room to participate by Zoom.
That's all. Thank you.
All right, any questions, Ms. Berger?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, any redirect, Ms. Thomas?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you for your testimony. May return to your seat. Any other witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Mawad?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Brooks?
I do not.
Good. Ms. Berger, anybody you'd like us to hear from today?
No, Your Honor.
I look forward to comments and closing then, beginning with Ms. Thomas.
Thank you, Judge. At this time, it seems that Mr. Schmidt is back in communication with the department, and it seems that there needs to be further communication regarding treatment for his TBI and whether it is appropriate to continue towards reunification for the child. And it also, I guess, is in part due to mom's incarceration. Although it's not very lengthy relative to some of the other cases that we see, I think it's appropriate to look into some of the potential permanency goals. And as Ms. Young stated, maybe guardianship is appropriate at this time, but we are talking about a toddler who has spent a significant amount of time away from his parents. And so I think that during this review period, those things need to be explored. As always, the continued efforts towards reunification will continue. And as it relates to MW, I would request that we maintain jurisdiction during this review period to ensure that whatever supports are needed to maintain his safety can be provided, at least through our case and through the funding available in that regard. And then hopefully at our next review hearing, we will either have a court order or know whether those voluntary services are available in their county. And with that, we would just ask for another 90-day review to explore potential permanency options for, I guess, both children. Thank you.
Thomas, could you articulate for me any outstanding reasons why that you see here that we could justify further extension of reviews, considering the fact that the child that we're really talking about, BS, was removed 3/26 of 22, clearly over the 15-month time frame, and really only under extraordinary circumstances is the court allowed to extend jurisdiction without consideration of the permanency and stability needs of this child.
Your Honor, while Ms. Demansky was not incarcerated, she had continued to make progress in her case service plan and complied with it. As far as a compelling reason, I cannot articulate one at this time. I think that for a majority of this case, we were waiting to find out what happened with the criminal charges. We were not sure if she would have any incarceration at all. But as it relates to Mr. Schmidt, given the lack of progress still and the inconsistent communication, I think as relates to him, at least we also don't have a compelling reason to continue towards reunification. Thank you.
Mr. Mawad?
So I am the child MW, correct?
The child at issue really here today, and I can tell you, I concur that MW, who's placed with non-respondent father, will likely be released. That seems to be in his best.
I don't have, I was gonna say, I really didn't have an objection to that because it sounds like the friend of the court is gonna handle some of that, if not all of it. So that's what I wanted to say. So as you know, my clients did receive a sentence for 12 months with the time. She gets out 10 months. It's not a prima facie termination. I'd like to see a guardianship if I can on this child to see what happens. I'd like you to keep it open, but I'm hoping the court doesn't terminate, not at this stage. But I like to see Bailey have some chance when she gets out of jail to reunify with these children some way through court supervision, whether it's through the friend of the court, whether it's through probate court, through a guardianship. That's what I'd like to see. I'm not sure what, obviously you're gonna let me know what you think, but I'm hoping the court doesn't terminate. That just might be. Thank you.
I can't, in all honesty, make an advocate for my client in this matter at all. I haven't spoken to him in months and months and months. So I don't know what his position is. The last one I heard is the one that was testified to by the department, which wasn't helpful to him continuing this matter at all. Quite the opposite, in fact. So if he's re-engaged, I really don't know about it. I do. So, but the direct answer to your question, do I have any compelling reasons to proceed with this case any further? No.
Ms. Berger? Oh, maybe having connectivity issues again with her on her end.
A bit, Your Honor. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. My office Wi-Fi is crazy this morning, I guess. At this time, Judge, I don't think it's a secret that I have been requesting a petition for termination for quite some time. I don't believe we have to move forward with MW, like I stated previously. I think that Dad is securing a new order. He's with a non-respondent parent. The respondent parent is incarcerated. They're not getting any parenting time. But as far as BS, I do believe that at this point we can change the goal. I think that enough time has passed, quote unquote, waiting on the criminal case. And at this point, I have a hard time.
I pressed the button so you couldn't hear it on this job.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Where did
It cut out after you said, at this point, I can't.
Yes. At this point, I can't see a reasonable, anything to grant a reasonable extension. We have a parent that has completed case plan services, has been compliant, but at this point is in jail for harming a child who is facing lifelong and long-term consequences from his physical injury. So at this time, I am asking that there be a goal change and that the department be ordered to file that petition for termination. Thank you.
All right, well, the court finds all interested parties were given notice for purposes of today's hearing, and that reasonable efforts towards the goal of reunification have been made, as well as recognizing the diligence of Ms. Berger in satisfaction of her obligations as guardian ad litem. Thank you,
Thank you.
ladies. The court does agree that it's in the best interest of MW, who has been placed with his non-respondent father, who's a parent with legal rights in this case for a significant period of time. And although we've had some investigations, I also trust our guardian ad litem in her observations that these are not issues that should cause the court to intervene with the family any further, as well as the observations made by Ms. Thomas that during the testimony of Ms. Young, that those services that are in place to help support Mr. West in remaining successfully reunified with his son are in place and will not be affected by the release of this child. It will be the order of the court that MW is released from jurisdiction of the court into the primary care and custody of his father, Cody West, who will continue to be directed to secure a custody order. However, I do find that the custody order, even though it is joint at this point in time, does not pose a risk of harm to this child anytime soon, given the fact that the respondent parent, Ms. Bailey, will be incarcerated for a period of at least the next 10 months. So for those reasons, there is no immediate risk of harm to this child, and he will be released from the court's jurisdiction. Now, if Mr. West does not secure his custody order and this remains outstanding next June, I'm sure he can look forward to the department knocking on his door. So I hope that you will take that seriously, Mr. West, and continue to pursue court orders that will maintain the safety of your child in the future. As it relates to BS, as the court indicated previously on record, this child has been removed from the care and custody of parents from March 26, 2022. I want to say, I think it's great that Ms. Young has put enough time, effort, and consideration into this case to rightfully observe that Mr. Schmidt's limitations as a result of his TBI may be contributing to the issues that caused him to be absent from his child's life for a period of approximately 6 months. But my job is to look at what is in the best interest of the child. Under the statute, abandonment is only a period of 90 days. He's far and away clearly been absent with the intentionally absent, nevertheless, may I say, from the life of his child for a period of nearly 6 months at this point in time. He has engaged in some recommendations, but not all recommendations, benefited somewhat. But at the end of the day, he must show us that he's willing to be there for his child. And what I have observed is that he is not willing to do that. So for those reasons, it will be the order of the court that the termination of parental rights petition be filed as it relates to his parental rights, looking at the goal of adoption for the child BS. I also have to recognize in the same vein that Ms. Bailey Domansky will be absent from her child's life for the next 10 months. So despite some of her recent progress on some of those issues that surround the initial causation that brought this child to care. I also have to recognize that those allegations of severe abuse at the hands of his mother are also now the cause of a period of incarceration for the next 10 months. I cannot ask this child to wait another 10 months to have a parent available to him. And it's not in that child's interest to do that. So for those reasons, the goal will be changed to adoption. If the parties wish to explore guardianship, I will never stand in the way of that. But as I can see here today, I'm not sure how the child would be able to benefit from a guardianship. That is something that is shown to be appropriate where we have a parent whose relationship with the child is a point of resiliency and support for that child. Ms. Domanski has been engaged with services and visitation as well as she's been able to. However, that has not been shown to be a compelling reason to look at guardianship, but I would certainly support the department exploring that and any other avenues that may be in the best interest of the child pending our next review hearing. But I have to look at his needs, the trauma that he's been in, and the stability and permanency that he needs, and whether or not there would be any reasonable period of time that we could look for Ms. Domanski to make adequate progress. And I do not find that 10 months is a reasonable period of time. So for those reasons, the goal is changed to adoption for this child. The court will order that the department file that petition within 30 days of today, have that timely filed and served by our next review hearing, which will also be the date and time for that termination trial on November 13th, commencing at 10:30 in the morning, assuming Mr. Mowad's available.
Should be available. May I make one correction?
Sure.
The victim in the criminal case was not her child.
Thank you. You're right.
Okay, that's, it's not gonna change your mind, but I just wanted to just make that clear. And November 13 sounds right. I got a ton of trials between now and then, but we'll figure it out. If there's an issue, I'll let the board know.
Yes, let me know as soon as possible.
All right.
I will look for a different date if necessary, because my assumption is that you would need more than an hour and a half, and so I've scheduled this for beginning at 10:30 and going to the end of the day. But if you don't think we're gonna need that much time, perhaps you can let me know.
Okay, we'll do.
All right, in the meantime, he will remain in the care and custody of his relatives under the temporary jurisdiction of the court. That is the safest and least restrictive place for him at this time, given the unavailability of both parents at this time. Absence of his father, as well as the incarceration of his mother, being the primary reasons therefore, in addition to the rest of the reasons that the court has explored. Unless there's any questions, that's all for today, and we'll see you all on the 13th.
The trial, can we just jump to best interest? Is that what we're dealing with?
It'll be a review, and typically
Okay.
the review is consolidated with the termination trial proofs, because the
Okay.
allegations will be
Perfect. I
under the
got you.
statute.
I got you. Okay,
And
very
then permanency planning in case something happens between now and then.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.